Excited to welcome you to Power to the People Pleasers and to introduce my guest, Susan Landers. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, Amy, it's my pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
So, shall I call you Dr. Susan? How
No,
would
you,
you?
you can call me Susan. I'm retired. It's fine.
Well, you served so many people, and you know what? When I was reading through your bio, it actually connected with my heart, and I have to start with this story because my middle daughter was a preemie,
Oh,
really little, 3 pounds 15 ounces,
that's a
and
big preemie, Amy.
oh, well, that's good, that's good. She was just felt so little to me, but
I know.
she was
Oh,
in the NICU for 2 weeks. Thankfully, it was only 2 weeks because she was so healthy even though she was little, right? But, um, I'm so grateful for people like you who do
oh,
that work. It was
oh,
such a hard
thank
time.
you. I know it's a really hard time for a lot of parents, moms especially, and I loved every minute of it. It was the most rewarding thing. And I've really missed it a lot since I've been retired,
I bet.
because you really get to be kind of part of people's family for a while. It's like you're shepherding their baby along and they're healing and thriving, and you're propping up the parents and you're talking with grandparents. And not only are you there at the beginning at the birth, but usually you're there at discharge home. And it's just so special. It meant the world to me to be able to um, care for so many babies, probably thousands. I lost count.
It's amazing. That is so I felt like after that experience, I said to my husband, in another life, I think I would want to work in the NICU, like, that
Oh, yes,
opportunity to be with those brand new little humans. Oh
yes.
my gosh. Wow.
Well, actually, the brand new little humans are easier to take care of than the beautiful adults they're connected to.
Oh, that's the
you,
truth.
we have all the technology and the ventilators and the
Oh,
medicine and the drips, and we know how to, shepherd them through. But it's such a trauma for parents. I felt like towards the end of my career, sometimes I was a minister, sometimes I was a social worker,
yeah.
sometimes I was serving as a psychologist. It just was really something that the parents had to navigate,
Mhm.
and very few people are really ready for it.
Oh, 0.
Zero,
0
zero. In
preparation.
your experience, zero, correct.
0 preparation, yeah. So, I wanna dive in. As you know, this podcast is for people who put themselves last, please others, say yes a lot, don't have boundaries, all those glorious parts of being a people pleaser. Have you ever had that experience? And tell us about that.
Oh, for gosh sakes. It seems like I lived my whole life as a people pleaser. And, it kind of came and went in waves throughout my career when I would do more things at work and for my patients and for things going on in the hospital. And then I would do less and I would pull back and do more for my children and my family. But there was always this nagging sense of, when you're a people pleaser, for me, there was a nagging sense of, I'm not doing enough.
Oh,
I was doing 2 full-time jobs. I was working 50 or 60 hours a week, taking night call and raising 3 children, and I was doing plenty. And some days I felt like I wasn't doing enough. And so I think the downside of people pleasing is we don't serve ourselves very well. We give ourselves a lot of negative talk. Oh, you're not doing this right. You could do more. Why can't you show up sooner or better or earlier? And it took me a while, it took me about 10 years of being a mom and a physician to figure out that when I was at work, if I was really invested in the babies and the care and gave it my best, I was doing a really good job. And when I was at home, if I was paying attention to my children, I was being a good enough mother. It took me a while to learn that I wasn't a perfect mother. And to get over
When are
that
we ever?
notion, yeah, there's a notion we all have of trying to be a perfect mother. Maybe it's part of people pleasing, but I wanted to do everything correctly. And when you work full time outside the home, you really can't. So it took me a while to give myself permission to be a good enough mother, to quit the negative self talk. I mean, it would bubble up. Oh, you missed a swim meet. Oh, you missed that play. Oh, why didn't you go to that birthday party with her because you needed to chat with that mom and stay in the circle? I mean, we all do that, but I had to learn slowly to let those things go, to unload the negative self talk around being a mother. It took me longer to be less of a people pleaser mother than being a people please doctor, because I felt like I was a good doctor. I knew what I was doing. And just in doing my job, I would help patients and their families.
What you just said there really hit for me. So, why do you think that why do you think that it was harder to let go of being a people pleaser as a mother?
Well, I've thought a lot about this, and in writing my book, I talk about several different possibilities, one of which is our cultural notion of what a good mother is supposed to be.
Yep.
What did our mother do? What did the best mother on the block do? Who made the cookies? Who was the president of the PTA? Who who was the stay-at-home mom that made everything look effortless? How does your sister-in-law do it? I mean, there's so many inputs in our culture from our experience and rubbing shoulders with other mothers, not to mention your own mother, that we get this idea in our heads of what a perfect mother is
Mhm.
and how we people please our children, our spouse, our partner, other friends in the neighborhood, other friends at school. It's an interesting theory because as women have gone into the workplace more,
Mhm.
and more women work full time and raise kids, we have all become more miserable,
Yep.
more burned out. We
Mhm.
are still trying to be perfect mothers.
Mhm.
And one of the messages I love to share with younger working mothers is that being a working mother is really hard.
Yeah.
It is really hard to balance, to juggle, to finagle, to be all those things at once, and to put some on the back burner and move others to the front burner. My daughter was having a moment with her 2-year-old, and the 6-year-old was watching and happily chuckling because the 2-year-old was pitching a fit. And my daughter looked at me and said, "Why is this so hard?" And I said,
Yeah.
"Honey, it's hard because it's hard."
Yeah.
It just is, and you're doing a great job. But when your kids act like this, you feel like you're not.
Mhm.
But it's normal, and we all have a difficult time with children from time to time, being
Yep.
at work and away from kids. So my message is being a working mother is hard.
Mhm.
And if you're a perfectionist, you make it harder on yourself.
Yes. 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 So, this was when I got that first opportunity to meet with you, you said the words perfectionism almost took me down.
Oh, wow.
Tell me about that.
Perfectionism, in the first half of my career, almost took me down because I had a new job, 3 little kids, was working on 2 different research projects. One needed to be finalized as a paper and submitted for publication. And my husband had the best job in the world. He was hardly working. It was just, it seemed effortless for him. And I was going about my usual way of doing everything for everybody and working full time. And my perfectionism really beat me down into a major depression. It really did. And it happened around 41 years of age, kind of typical. Some women will get a midlife
Yeah.
dip. They say to themselves, what am I doing in this career? Is this really what I want to do? Is this what I'm good at? What am I using my strengths? And so I wasn't using my strengths or enjoying my job. I was in a bad job for me at the time. And I let it get to me physically and emotionally. Thank goodness I had a friend who recognized me being depressed, and she referred me to a therapist
Good.
who helped me sort through all my issues. And I don't remember if I told you this analogy. I fashioned myself in my mind as the man on the variety show who spins plates on sticks.
No.
Yeah, so you run on the stage and you spin these sticks and you put a plate on top and it starts spinning around. And the more plates and the more sticks you have spinning on the stage, the better. And you run from stick to stick to make sure they're all spinning and nothing wobbles and nothing falls and breaks. So I'm telling my therapist, this is how my life is.
What an
And
analogy.
he looked at me and he chuckled. I said, what is so funny about this? This is not funny.
Yeah.
And he said, why don't you take down some of the plates?
Mm.
It was such a profound moment. It was one of the biggest aha moments because perfectionistic people cannot do everything. They
Yeah.
think they can, they want to, but it's inhuman. So I started thinking about my plates and
Mm.
I took down the ones that weren't important.
Mm.
And so then I could really focus on where I wanted to spend my attention. And my self-criticism dwindled.
Mm.
I could say to myself, well, I'm doing a better job with this because I didn't have 5 other things in the back of my brain plowing to get forward. And
Yeah.
so that episode of depression helped me to examine my way of being a perfectionist and helped me to get out of that method, quit being so negative and hard on myself, and just decide on my priorities. I finally got to decide, okay, my 3 kids are important. My marriage is very important. I love my job. I need a better one so that I can use my strengths and my talents. And when I did that, I sort of grew up as an adult woman
Mm.
working full time for a living.
Wow. Wow. The plates. Thank you. Thank you.
Spinning plates.
Wow. Yeah, you know what? I'm resonating with so many of your words, and the piece of the story that actually I want to highlight and bring back out is that your friend helped you to get the help, and a very dark place in your life, instead of it totally derailing and taking you to a worse place, you were able to find a gift and move forward and have some change that helped you to, grow up as a human woman, as you said. That's
Right.
huge.
When I had moved into that job that I didn't like, I left a lot of good friends in another city. And the one friend that helped me recognize that I was getting depressed really deserves a lot of credit because she was brave enough to say, you're not acting healthy. Something's
Wow.
wrong. Maybe you're depressed. Maybe you should get some help. And I felt like I was alone except for her. And
Wow.
I felt like I was alone except for her and the therapist. My husband was having such a good time, I didn't confide in him what was going on. So
Mhm.
the lessons there are your friends pretty much know how you're doing.
Yeah.
And if you're not talking to your good friends, I encourage people to do so because we know each other. We support each other. We provide emotional support and uplift when we need it. We also give each other permission to say, I am just fried. I've just got to take 2 or 3 days to do nothing. Your best friend is going to say, why don't you take a week? And
Yeah.
so I think I was really lucky that that one friend pointed me in the right direction, because I had left my other friends behind and they weren't
Mhm.
around to see me falling apart.
Wow. Oh, thank goodness for her, right?
Hmm.
Earlier you mentioned, you said something like you knew that you were doing well as a doctor because you were doing your job. And something came to my mind at that time of, you know, I'd love your opinion on, is it harder to be a parent, a mother, with all this, inputs from all these places, because there isn't, you don't go to school to become a mother. You don't go, there's not a, these are the exact steps you take to be a doctor and all the things you have to know, right? You had a very specific
Right.
learning, when really, as you said about me in the, prenatal place, I was thrown into the deep end and I wasn't prepared at all. Do you think there's a part of that?
There's a big part of that. I had trained for 4 years in med school, 3 years in residency, 3 years in fellowship. I knew what I was doing. And still, the first year or two, I would talk to more experienced folks in neonatology to make sure I was doing the right thing. But when we're thrown into motherhood, even if we read the child development books, even if we listen to the podcast, even if we read a good book about how to be a parent, we really do tend to question ourselves. We tend to second guess. Again, we're comparing ourselves to our mother, our sister-in-law, our neighbor, and there are lots of questions that come up. And currently, there's no right or wrong way to parent. We know there's some things going on in parenting styles that might be excessive and might be detrimental to children, but they're, how you put your baby to sleep, how you breastfeed your baby,
Yeah.
how
What
you
diapers to
discipline
use?
your child, what diapers to use. Yeah, I mean, every little thing we we force ourselves to second guess or compare ourselves to others. I have another theory about that, Amy. I think that social media has made all of that worse.
Yes.
I'm sorry to sound so old fashioned, but when we scroll Instagram, when we look at photos on Facebook, we're not seeing reality. We're seeing curated best
Yeah.
shots, experts who think it's simple. Some
Mhm.
experts agree it's not ever simple and they're realistic, but we compare ourselves to others in a way that encourages that second guessing.
Yeah.
And so it is harder to learn to be a mother than it is to learn to be a doctor. There is
Yeah.
no mother school.
Yeah.
If you had a good experience with your own mother or your mother-in-law and you like talking with them, you're golden, because that's very helpful. If
Yeah.
you have friends that are going through the same phases of motherhood that you are, that's golden again, because you can bounce ideas off each other.
Mhm.
Any of us acting alone will almost always second guess, is this the right thing to do? Because our kids know how to push our buttons. They know how to get a reaction.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just do. They love it. That's the way they get our attention.
Yeah.
Their whole job is get our attention.
And they do it very well. So well.
Right.
So I'd love to jump over, you wrote a book, So Many Babies. I love that title. My Life Balancing a Busy Medical Career and Motherhood. And I'd love to know, don't tell me the whole book, because I think that people buying it and reading it is key. What is, one of the takeaways that, if you could share with me, a mom of three, you would share with me from that book?
The main message is that what you're doing is difficult and you need to give yourself a break, because you're doing a better job than you think you are. The balance is a challenge, and it's more of a juggle than a balance. I mean, you can't have all the balls up in the air. Sometimes something falls on the ground. And so the message in my book is, these are the mistakes I made and survived.
Mm.
These are the things that happened with me and my children, and they turned out pretty well.
Yeah.
There were very few mistakes that I told about medical treatment. I did talk a lot about cases and the NICU because I wanted people to get a sense of what it's really like to have a baby in the NICU and how challenging that is for some people. But
Yeah.
it's not a medical book. It's really a
Yes.
book about being parents.
Mm.
And I meant it to be reassuring for other moms to read it and go, wow, if all this stuff happened to her and she's okay, then I'm going to be okay too.
Yes. Such a powerful message. I love that. If we can continue to use that energy to raise each other up instead of the comparison energy, right? And
Right,
that use that as the fire, the fuel. I can get through this. Look how this turned out.
right.
I love that. So as we wrap up today, I'd love, what is the takeaway message that you'd like to leave for our audience here?
Not to let perfectionism drag you down. If you're a workaholic and if you're a perfectionist, try to recognize that. Try to counter the negative self talk. Try to build yourself up. Try to talk to yourself like you would a friend. You're doing an okay job. This is hard. It's not easy. Yeah, it was a stressful day, but you can settle down and you can get back in there tomorrow. I want people to learn to be a little nicer to themselves and not spend so much time comparing themselves on social media.
Mm.
Talk to your very best friend. That is the most valuable thing that I have found over the years, Amy, that kept me going, kept me propped up. Talk to your very best friend. It may be your husband or your spouse, it may be another woman, but that person loves you and they're going to give you the truth and help you sort through your issues.
I love it. You know what, Susan, you have a huge heart, and I I could talk with you all day. I feel like, man, you get me.
Oh, thank you so much.
In all your words. It's so great.
Oh,
So thank you very much for being here today and sharing your wisdom and your wonderful energy with us.
thank you. I wanted to mention the free resources that I
Yes,
have for
please.
mothers.
Mhm.
SusanLandersMD.com/resources. There are a number of things there: a wellness journal, a burnout checklist,
Yes.
a self assessment checklist. I want your listeners to go check that out and take advantage of the things I've worked on for other working moms.
Amazing. Thank you for those gifts. I'll be sure to put that link right in the show notes as well.
Good, thanks.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, Susan. And thank you for being here. And for all of our listeners, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Power to the People Pleasers. And please join us for the next episode soon. Have a great day.